Is that easy? Okay. And what was the difficult part? else that needs to join, they can just join us um, later. All right. So I haven't introduced myself. I'm Gustav. So pleased to meet you all. Well, I should get your names. What's your name? Kwandi. Kwande. And your name? Sinetemba. And your Kalalegu. Kalalelo. Okay, I will try to get that right. All right. So thank you for those that participated in that poll, mentioning what subject or what parts of the work is most difficult, because we only have 5 hours for paper one and 5 hours for paper two, right? Today is 5 hours we're going to spend with paper one, and tomorrow paper two. And the idea is, if we're going to try to fit in everything in this 5 hours, it's only going to be like a lecture. I'm just going to ramble off everything, and then you maybe go away with not really practicing what we've done. So the whole idea is, and you will see now. I just show this on the screen. So in short, paper one is we can put it down into these categories. It's solve for X, that's that first two questions. Sequences and series, the next two questions. Then graphs, very big, and it's about 2 or 3 questions. Then financial, the aspect of that, of the paper, and that's about only one question. Then differentiation, maybe 1 or 2 questions. And then the third degree graphs and optimization, that's that's also a bit large. It can be 2 questions or maybe 3 questions. And then the last is probability, which is grade 11 work and then matric work. And as you can see from 2016, the final exam, more or less, or not more or less, these are the values or um, the marks allocated for each section. And you can see clearly the graph is very big, 35 marks in on average. There was one time when it was 37 marks. And then differentiation, not a lot. Finance is it's sad that it's so little, because all of these mathematics is maybe finance that you're going to use the most one day. But in any case, then differentiation and third degree graphs and optimization, those two together is also a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend time with the green ones, and that's about 70 marks. So the idea is, after today, that when you're going to write the next exam, um, the preliminary exam as well as the final exam, hopefully you will definitely get at least 70, at least, and then the rest you can figure out, you know how to figure that out. But at least if you see the graphs questions, or you see the differentiation questions, or you see the third degree graph and optimization questions, you know exactly what to do. So just to quickly run through tomorrow's work, but I'll show this again tomorrow. Tomorrow, then we will spend time in general trig. That's basically 3 things that general trig, oh no, general trig graphs, and 3D trig. Those three, all 3Ds are basically falls under the category of trigonometry, but I've split it into three. And as you can see here, analytical geometry is quite a lot. Then trig, in the whole of trig is a lot of marks. But we're going to spend time with general trig, and then also you can see trig graphs is not a lot, and then 3D trig is also not a lot, but it's good if we can spend time there, so that the moment you see those questions, you know you will get 9 out of 9 or so. And then Euclidean geometry is also always a lot. So we're going to spend time then on those. So we're first going to start with graphs today. Any questions before we start? No questions. All right. So the whole idea is, so what we're going to do is, I'm going to go through what I believe is everything that you need in terms of graphs you need to know. And then we're going to do some questions, maybe a question or two together, and then I'll give you questions and you solve it, and we discuss it and everything like that. It should be, in the end, you should have confidence in knowing exactly what to do. So all of you, I don't know your background in terms of the maths mark, but I assume everybody has like 90, 99 or 98 or not. No, I'm joking. So we're all learning, right? So hopefully you can learn from me, and maybe I can learn from you as well today. All right. So, but please, as soon as there's a question, maybe when I explain something and it doesn't make really sense, please stop me, and maybe you can just raise your hand and you say, "Wait a minute, there, I don't really get what you're saying there," or something. Because in the end, I want you to get the best out of these of today, obviously. All right, so let's start with the graphs. So uh, the functions and the okay, it's basically functions and inverse, and you've spent time on that last year as well, grade 11. You've done straight line, parabola, hyperbola, and exponential graph. So and that was grade 11's work, and you should be familiar with that. But in any case, we're going to cover that as well. Then in matric, we did some extra things, and that is the inverse of those graphs, and that's the only thing that came along. And now everything is mixed. And in short, in grade 10, you've started with graphs. Actually, maybe grade 7 already, you start with something with graphs, just a straight line or something like that. But in grade 10, you specifically followed the whole thing about what happens with a graph if it goes up or down. But I'll explain that again today. And that's with any graphs. With this part that we're going to do today, as well as with trigonometry graphs. The only concern was here you have a graph. What's happening when it goes up and down? Or something happens. Maybe it gets thinner or wider or stuff like that. But it has to do with the y direction. Then in grade 11, you said, all right, now we're going to move left and right. And then we had a look at what is the implications when we go left and right. And then obviously matric, everything is combined. All right. So let's start with the straight line first. Just everything that we need to know when it comes to the straight line. And like I said, we're going to quickly go through everything that I believe you need to know. And then we're going to do a lot of questions. So when it comes to a straight line, this is maybe the easiest of all, because you, like I said, maybe some of you already done this from grade 7, 8 already. So a straight line is just obviously a straight line. And what do we need to get the straight lines equation? Well, first of all, let me just write the straight lines equation. Y equals mx plus c, or you have the other equation as well, which is y minus y1 equals mx minus x1, right? You know that one as well. But let me just show you where that one comes from before we write it down again. So we know m is the gradient. Now, in short, you can think of it like this. Everything in front of the x with the highest power, that gives you the shape of the graph. And we're going to look at that when it comes to parabola and the rest as well. So just keep that in the back of your head. So m gives us the shape, and we'll discuss it now. So m is just delta y over delta x, right? So it is y, we can say y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. You all know that. And now just to take this and say, well, I'm going to do this. I'm just going to get rid of that 2 and just multiply throughout with the denominator. Then I have m x minus x1, which is y minus y1. You see, and that is the other equation of a straight line. Y minus y1 equals m x minus x1. You see, it's not a new equation. It's the same one that you've already done. It's just written a bit in a nicer way. So to get the equation of a straight line, we can either use the left one or the right one. But in short, it comes down to this. What do you need? You either need 2 points. So if somebody asks you, please draw a straight line, you obviously need 2 points, the beginning and the end. Or if you just have 1 point, you need the gradient. So that's what you need. And this will come in very handy when it comes to the hyperbola that we will discuss. All right, so the gradient can be greater than 0. The gradient can also be equal to 0. the gradient can be less than 0, or the gradient can't doesn't exist, or is undefined. Something that's greater than 0, you always go from left to right. So it's let's say a small person going up, so it's difficult, so it's uphill. Equal to 0, the gradient is 0. It's just flat, horizontal. Less than 0, we are experiencing a downhill, and then that if it doesn't exist, you can't walk up a wall. Does that make sense? But like I said, I think you all have this. Now, when it comes to the domain and the range, the domain, and you all have physics as well, if I'm not mistaken. The domain is what you decide it to be, time or something, or meters or whatever. And then the range is what happens with when you put it in a function. Remember, everything has to do with functions. So like a calculator, you type in something, and then something happens. That's the process, and then what spits out is the range, is the value. So the range is always the y, and the domain is always the x. So you ask yourself, whenever you have a graph, let me just draw something like this. Because I know a lot of times the whole thing about domain and range doesn't always 100% make sense. So if I shine a light from on top, and this is some sort of figure, then the shadow that's been cast, the final shadow, yeah, that will be my domain. So for domain, I know it looks strange, but for domain, you draw a vertical line, and you just have a look at where does the shadow fall on the x-axis. So that's domain. And another reason why we can say that is correct, because this line here, for instance, is equal to, let's say, 7. X equals 7. This line here might be x equals 1. And then x equals 2, x equals... It all has to do with x. Then the range, if you shine your light from the right, and you see this, then where does the shadow being cast? That is your range. So it's just horizontal lines this time that we draw from top to bottom. And we ask ourselves, where does it cut the y-axis? And you can think of it like maybe that line is equal to 7, like I said, and this one is maybe y equals 3, and so on. So then it's horizontal lines that you draw. Everybody good with that? So that means when it comes to the domain usually, when it comes to straight lines, especially if it just carries on, is almost always x can be anything, and the range is almost always y can be anything. The only difference is if it's your special lines, like this one here. This is a special line. So your x is anything, but your y is just a number. Hello? Are you good? All right. So then your x can be anything, but your y is just a number. And this here is also a special angle, a special line. This one, your x is just a number, but your y can be anything. So that's the only difference. So we are busy with graph. We're going to look at first a lot of things that you need to know in terms of graphs, and then we're going to do a lot of questions. And you're more than welcome to ask anytime when there's a question or when something doesn't make sense. So I've just explained everything that we need to know in terms of a straight line. But I think that was straightforward. Nothing too complex and something, right? Any questions up until now? You're all good. All right, let's go and have a look at the parabola now. The parabola. So this is now the second thing. All right, so when it comes to the parabola, we have the following. The standard equation, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And what did I say earlier? I said the number in front of your leading x with the highest power, that will determine what shape the figure has. So if we can know what this A does, what this B does, and what this C does, then obviously we can graph the whole thing. Then we are done. Then we can carry on. Now let's investigate what each one does. That A, when A is greater than 0, the smile is a smiley face, right? When A is smaller than 0, it's a sad face. So that we all know. The B, we also do know, but it's not necessary to do it in high school to know exactly what the effect of it is. So we're going to just skip that. And the C is your y-intercept. Why is it your y-intercept? How do we get a y-intercept? You make x 0. Now, if you make x 0, that falls away. So y equals, let's see. You see, so that's why it's a y-intercept. All right, but if it's given like this, and all that I know is the y-intercept and the shape, I'm still not 100% sure how does it look like. I mean, if I know this, let me just draw this. If I know for certain, it must go through that point and it must have such a shape. I'm still not 100% sure how to draw it. I mean, it can look like this, can look like this, can look like this. You get the idea. So that's why I need something else. And this shape is not complete. So I need to convert this into something that I can quickly have a look at and I know exactly, oh, this is how it looks like. One of them being the following. We can say it's the turning point formula. Turning point formula is the same thing. It's just now A x minus p squared plus q. How do I get from this to this? It's your, yes, completing of squares. Is that thing that you studied in grade 11. Now, sometimes they will ask you that you need to write it in this form, and then you are, oh, well, I need to do completing of squares, and maybe you forgot about how to do completing of squares. So we will look at it now, but don't worry, you can Jippo that system. You can get to this without completing of squares. And I'll show you what you can do, like a trick that you can do. Or not a trick, you might know it as well. So, but let's have a look at if it's in terms of the turning point formula. So now that I have it as a turning point formula, again, I want to know all my variables. I want to know what does everything do or what does everything stand for. This A didn't change. You see, it's the same as the A on top. So that A still tells you, does it smile or is it sad? This Q this time, what is that? That's your turning points, Y value. And then this P, what does that tell you? That's your turning points X value. Remember, in the brackets is always the opposite. So if it's X equals X minus 5, then it's equals to 5. Because technically we are equating it to 0. And if X minus 5 is 0, X is 5. And again, just keep this in the back of your head. Like I said earlier in the beginning of the class, grade 10, you just moved up and down. And I'll show that tomorrow a bit more in depth when it comes to the graphs of trig. Grade 11, you moved left and right. Now, when it comes to up and down, up is positive, down is negative. If you want to enlarge it, if you want to stretch it out in the y direction, you multiply. If you want to compress it in the y direction, you have it less than 1, right? But as soon as, so grade 10 was easy. Grade 11 was a bit tricky when it comes to its just work in general. So now when it comes to the x direction, if something is stretched out in the x direction, then the value in front of the x is actually less than 1. And if it's pushed in or cramped in, compressed in, then it's greater than 1. But I'll show you more on that tomorrow. The whole point that I just want to make is when you have a function, just to show you this, like f of x, right? We know y equals f of x. So if I'm changing, if I'm doing anything plus a, or h times all of this. I've changed my y because this was like y. So here I have y plus something, or y times something. So that will have an effect on the y direction. But the moment I have this x minus something, can you see I'm affecting the x? So within the function, then it's not as easy as, oh, up is positive, down is negative. Now it's negative is to the right and positive is to the left. Makes sense? So the moment we are in the function itself, because technically we are in the function. It's not something that's outside of that function. So the moment we are in that function, I can have there be as well. Then everything changes in terms of the x, the domain. But if you're just changing something in y, it's only your range that's been affected. If you're just changing something in the x, it's just your domain that's changed. All right. So let's carry on with this part. So now, if we have this thing, and I know exactly what those points are, and so I know the turning point, and I also know the form. So I have the form, I have the turning point x value, and I have the turning point's y value. What else do I need to have a perfect graph? I will have my y-intercept because it's been given in the standard form. So this thing almost is complete. Why do I still need to have it a nice graph? The x-intercepts. So I don't have the x-intercepts yet. So unfortunately, that I don't have, but I can easily get it. I just equate y to 0. But what I want you to see now is from a standard equation, it was not sufficient enough to completely draw the graph. But now at least when it's in the turning point formula or form, it's a bit easier. I know what the turning point is. I know what the y-intercept is. I know what the shape is. So more or less, I know how the graph should look like. But another way that we can also draw it is in the x-intercept form. The x-intercept form. How does the x-intercept form look like? Is y equals a x minus a number and x minus another number. Why do I want it sometimes to be in that form? Well, sometimes it's then easier. Obviously, this is called the x-intercept form. So you have the x-intercepts. See, so that value there is that one, and that value there is that one. All right, but how do I get from a standard equation to that x-intercept form? You just said earlier, which was correct, to get from there to here, we make use of completing of squares, and you can always complete the squares. But to get from here to here, what do we need to do? It's your favorite F word in maths, factorization. We need to do factorization. Now, not everything can be nicely factorized, unfortunately, but everything can be nicely, or not nicely, but it can be completing of squares. So we need to factorize. Now again, what does each value tells us? Well, this a, again, didn't change. It's the same a. So it gives us the shape. And the x1 and x2 is just the intercepts. All right, but now, what does this thing have that this one doesn't have? Just by looking at it. The turning point, you see. So the one has a turning point, but not the x-intercepts. The other one does have the x-intercepts, but not the turning point. You see. So that's why you need to know how to do everything to easily get to all of the values. Now, what I want to show you now is if you have it in this form, how can I quickly get the x value of the turning point? Let's say you've been given this value, that value you have, that value you have. So how can I quickly get that value there? Yes, it's just in the middle. It's just in the middle. So you can just add these two numbers. Yes. And divide it by 2. You see. And then you have that. All right, so as soon as you have the x value, how can I get that y value of the turning point? In the original equation, right? Then you have the x and you have the y. So what do you have? You have the a, you have then the p, and you have the q. So was it then necessary to do completing of squares to write it in that form? No. You see how you can skip you can still get it in this form without doing completing of squares. Okay, now I want to show you something else that's part of this work. And that is if we want to get this line of, so obviously this line, we know exactly what it is. It's just that x equals that value. And that we call the axis of symmetry, right? Now, to get that axis of symmetry from the beginning, we can also use another equation. And what equation is that? If you have it in this form. You all know it. X equals? Yes. You know why is it like that? Not really. You just do maths in school and the teacher is telling you something and say, just learn it. Say again? You can, yes, it's the first derivative. We will discuss that now. And I want to show you another way as well. But remember, in maths, if you want to do good in maths and actually any subject, there must be a reason why you are writing something. There must be a reason why you're doing anything. If you don't know the reason, find out the reason. Otherwise, if you just say, well, this is what I saw other people do on YouTube, I'm going to do it as well, then it's not, if you memorize maths, you will get stuck. It must be something that comes easy. Not easy, but you understand why it's like that. I want to ask you, if we, just on that note, if I give you this equation and I equate it to 0 and you don't want to factorize, how do you solve it then? Say again? If you don't want to factorize. Obviously, it will be nice. Let's say I give you, let's say the answer is x minus 4 times x plus 3 equals 0. Then we have the x values, right? Yes, that quadratic formula. So we say x equals negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. You all know that formula, right? Now, what does this actually tell us? It says it is negative b over 2a plus minus square root b squared minus 4ac over 2a. So you have a number plus another number, and you have the same number subtract another number. Makes sense? It's like saying 10 plus 3 or 10 minus 3. So think of it like this. Think of it like this. If you have the x-intercepts, because remember, we are equating this to 0. So let's just wait for everybody to get in. Hello, everybody. Hope you're good. So you can just have a sit. We are busy with graphs. So I'm quickly explaining everything that we need to know in terms of graphs, and then we're going to do a lot of questions. But to lay the groundwork, we need to be on the same page. All right, so that is if I equate the parabola equal to 0, so I need my x-intercepts. Now, what is one of the x-intercepts? It is a number minus another number. So it might be something here. And another one is a number plus another number. So what is in the middle? That number. Does it make sense? If I say, here's a number, it is something plus something. And here's another number, is that number minus something. So then here you have the two numbers. So which one is in the middle? Is that one thing that you said, that plus that or that minus that? Makes sense? So that's why this line here is then negative b over 2a. That part there. Makes sense? So that's another reason why we say x equals negative b over 2a. Another reason, and we will discuss that later as well, what is the gradient at the turning point? How do we get the gradient? Gradient. The gradient is the first derivative, right? So y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. What is the first derivative? 2a plus b. And we equate it to 0. So x equals negative b over 2a. You see? So there's two reasons at least why you can quickly get the turning of the axis of symmetry. Makes sense? All right. Now, in terms of the domain and the range, if they don't cut it for you, if they don't specify it needs to go between this and this, then the domain is always x is just anything from left to right. The range is always y is greater than that q value. What is that q value? That q value I'm referring to is the y value of the turning point. It's always greater than that one if your a is greater than 0. So if it smiles. But it's always smaller or equal than that q value if your a is smaller than 0, if it's sad. All right, that's about that when it comes to the parabola. Any questions regarding the parabola? So like I said, we cover quickly everything that we need to know in terms of all the graphs. And if you know this and you know this by heart, then I want to go so far as to say it's obviously good to exercise and to do a lot of to practice, but you can straight just go wait for the India exam and then go and write. Or won't that work? You sleep from now up until then, and then you just wake up and write it and go home. That will be good. But think of it. What do you prefer? To study every time before a maths test? To study like, let's say 2 hours and then next week you write again and then study 2 hours and study 2 hours every time? Or just sit one time, maybe for 10 hours and really get it. Like, I mean, really, you understand it completely. Then you have that for the rest of life. Won't that work? You don't like that option. Well, there's certain things I've made for myself when I was in grade 10 or 11 or 12, and it still sticks to me today. So at that time I put in the effort to understand it in such a way or a certain way, and I understand it up until now in that same way. So you can also try to do that. All right, but let's carry on. So next we're going to do the hyperbola. Hyperbola. So how does that graph look like? It is a over x minus p plus q, right? So again, we have three variables, the a, the p, the q, and we need to know exactly what does each one do, and then we know how the graphs look like. Let's start with a again. A, just like the previous stuff, remember, here with a straight line, I could have said that is a. Sometimes textbooks write it as this, ax plus q. So that a tells us something about the shape. So that a we have, that a also tell us something about the shape. And again, no different. This a also tells us something about the shape. If the a is greater than 0, think of the tan graph, then we are in the first and third quadrant. If the a is smaller than 0, we are in the second and fourth quadrant. So again, the a tells you what is the shape. The p, again, where's the p? It's like this one here. So it means it shifts. The whole graph, as soon as you are changing your x, you are moving left and right. As soon as you are changing your y, you are going up or down. So I'm changing my x. So it means the whole thing shifts. What are you never allowed to do in maths? Divide by 0. You're not allowed to divide by 0. So when that is equal to 0, obviously the graph should show me, listen here, something happens here. You can't go here. It's a no entry zone. And that is your vertical asymptote, right? That's your vertical asymptote. And then what does this q value tell us? That's your horizontal asymptote. Because why is it have you think about it. Why is it your horizontal asymptote? It means it's a value that you will never get to. Why? If you just have a look at this. If I go to infinity, so meaning your x is infinity, right? It's a very, very large number. What is any number divided with a very, very large number? It's 0, right? It tends to go to 0. So what is left? Y equals 0 plus q. So that you will only have that line left, or that value. The same as if I go to negative infinity. If this is negative infinity, then this whole thing here again will just be 0. And then you have y equals 0 plus q, so it's the same line. So that's why it's the horizontal asymptote. We will never get to that value, even if we try. It's like that girlfriend or boyfriend that you really want, but you will never get. Even if you spend time with him or her, they won't be interested. So you can carry on and on, but you will never be an item. All right. So let's say I have a graph like this. Let's say I have a graph like this, and here's asymptote, and here's an asymptote. So here's the graph here, for instance, and here. Right. How do I get the y-intercept? Just like the other graphs. How do we get the y-intercept? Just make x 0. So doesn't matter any graph. If you want the y-intercept, just make x 0. Then you will get it. How will I get the x-intercept? You just make the y equal to 0. All right. And then, so we have the shape because of A, and we know in what quadrants it is, and we have the x-intercept, y-intercept based on just x equals 0, y equals 0. Then what else is important that gets also asked a lot of times when it comes to a hyperbola? Is the straight line doesn't have it, but the parabola has it. Parabola has one of it, the hyperbola has two of it. Yes, axis of symmetry. And there's always two, right? The one's gradient is always 1, and the other one's gradient is always -1. And if we go back to what I said in the beginning, what do you need for a straight lines equation? You need 2 points, or if you don't have 2 points, you need 1 point and a gradient. Now, unfortunately, for these straight lines, I have the gradient, and I only have 1 point, but I can get the equation then. What is that point there? How do I get that point? Is the y equals that q value, and the x equals that p value. So you have that. You have the point. All right. Something else when it comes to the hyperbola, what is the domain? Meaning, what can I make x? I can make x anything, right? Except that p value. What is the range? Y will in the end be anything except it won't ever get to that q. Because why not? Because this technically won't ever be 0. It will tend to 0, but it won't ever be 0. All right. Everybody good with the hyperbola? Any questions when it comes to hyperbola? All right. Then lastly, and then we're going to look at the inverse of all of these stuff, is the exponential graph. Exponential graph. So this one looks like this. AB to the power of x minus p plus q. So I want to ask you, let's make it yellow. How many unknowns were in the straight lines equation? So remember, x and y is the relationship. So I'm not referring to x and y, I'm referring to anything else. How many unknowns were in this equation? 2, m and c. Even in this equation, we have m and obviously the numbers, but those numbers we will have. It will just be whatever that is in the end. So it's actually twice. And in this equation, how many unknowns do we have? 3. A, B, and C. Yeah. A, P, and Q. Yeah. A, that number, and that number. So it's also 3. How many unknowns do we have here? 1, 2, 3. So every time it seems to be 3 is the maximum. But in comes the exponential graph. How many unknowns are here? 1, 2, 3, 4. So they won't ever ask you to calculate all 4. And you will see now the reason why they won't ask you to calculate all 4. Because technically, this P can be within this A. And I'll explain now. Let's just first discuss what each thing does. Let's start with the Q. What does the Q do or tell us? It's the same as the hyperbola, the horizontal asymptote. So if you can first establish that, you know exactly what the horizontal asymptote is, then we carry on. What does the A tell us? Again, remember A is the shape. If A is greater than 0, it means the shape is above the horizontal asymptote, 100%. If A is smaller than 0, we know it's below. But as you can see, I've drawn 2 different shapes. So how do I know which one it is? Then you look at the B. You can think of this as the mother and the baby, B for baby. If the baby is still smaller than 1, but obviously the baby has been born. So if the baby is still smaller than 1, that baby tends to go to the mother. You see? It goes to the mother. If that baby is growing and is older than 1 year old, it goes away from the mother. Makes sense? And then lastly, what does this P tell us? And look again, I'm changing my X. It's X minus P. So it means the whole thing is shifted to the left or to the right. But it's a bit difficult to visually inspect it when it comes to an exponential graph, and I'll show you now. Let me just show you this. This graph here. Let's take this graph, for instance, that I'm drawing now. I'm going to leave it as a black line. If I just move it to the right, something like this. Let's make it another color. So you all saw what I've done. I've just moved it to the right. Or let me rather move it to the left. I move it to the left. So you all saw I just took that graph, I move it to the left, which means I've changed my P. That P value I've changed. Makes sense. But what if I did this? So I took the same one. Just want to quickly get to that. I took the same one, but I've enlarged it in the Y direction. Then it's more or less, or not more or less, it's just I didn't draw it nicely. But can you see it's the same graph then as the purple one? So what then? What have I done to get from the black one to the purple one or the red one? Well, it's 2 answers. You either move the whole graph to the left, the translation, or you multiply the whole thing with a value of 2 or 3 or whatever. So you see those 2 things. That's why I said the P value and the A value can have the same, not the same effect. Let me show you by means of a graph. If I say this is, here's a graph, 2 times, let's say 3 to the power of x minus 2, or let's say minus 1, plus 4, right? So there I can see there's an A, there's a B, there's a P, and there's a Q. But I mean, this can be written as 3 to the power of x times 3 to the power of negative 1. And then this can be written as 2 over 3 times 3 to the power of x plus 4. So can you see why I said that value there can be incorporated into the A. So that's why taking this original equation, just x 3 to the power of x, I can say, well, I've moved to the left or to the right, or I can say, no, I've multiplied with something. And that's what I've explained here is to get from the black one to those, you can either move or you can enlarge it in the y direction also. All right. What else is important when it comes to the exponential graph? The domain is almost always x can be anything. The range is y is always greater than that q value if your a is greater than 0, or y is always smaller than that q value if the a is smaller than 0. It's almost the same. Let me just show you here. What's standing here is almost the same as the hyperbola. Not the hyperbola, the parabola. Can you guys see? The only difference is it's not included. Because remember, when it comes to a horizontal exponential graph, that q value is your asymptote. So that's why it's not included. All right, any questions so far? You're all good? All right, so that was more or less everything in terms of grade 10 and 11's work, right? And then in matric, the extra thing that you've done was still keep that in mind, all of your graphs, but have the inverse thereof. And what does inverse do? So let's have a look at the inverse. What does inverse do? It's just your x becomes y and the y becomes x eventually, right? So when it comes to a straight line, does a straight line have an inverse? Yes, but not always. If it's one of these, if it's this special case or this special case, the inverse or the function itself isn't the function. This blue line is a function, right? But its inverse will be a vertical line, which is not a function. And this purple line is not a function, but its inverse will be a straight line, which is a function. So without looking at those two special cases, in short, or without those two, with the exception of those two, does a straight line have an inverse? Yes. So if I draw this line, the inverse is always the line or the graph that you will get when you reflect it around the y equals x axis. So the inverse then for this one will perhaps look something like this. You agree? It's just the inverse. All right, and all that you do is in high school, it's still fine if you just swap the x and the y and you make y the subject. Next year, you will just learn just a small, another way of writing it. All right, the parabola. Does the parabola have inverse? Yes, but we need to give, yes, we need to say what is the restrictions. So when it comes to a parabola, one that smiles, something like this, its inverse will look like this because it's going around that y equals x axis. It is as if you put a mirror there. The only problem is I need to define it. I need to say we're either going to look at this green part here, which will result in this green part here, or we're going to look at this blue part here, which will result in this blue part here. So you need to just give your limits and say, I'm only going to look at the original graph from x equals 0 up until 5 or whatever, or greater than 0, and or less than 0. And if it's smaller than, if it's something like this, then the inverse will look like this, right? Which is not a function, except if I maybe split, if I say I'm only going to look at this green part, and that green part is that part, or I'm going to look at this blue part, which is this blue part here. All right. Now, let's have a look at, so we've just looked at the straight lines inverse. We've looked at the parabolas inverse. Have you guys studied the hyperbolas inverse? Can you remember about anything about the hyperbolas inverse? Why not? Because it's the function itself. Let's have a look at it. If I look at the let's just make it a simple one. 7 over x. That's the original equation. How do I get the inverse? You swap them, and you make y the subject. Isn't it? It's the same thing? You see, why is it the same thing? Because the axis of symmetry, one of the axes of symmetry, is already y equals x. So the axis of symmetry is already the inverse. So that's why we don't do it. It's useless. So when it comes to the hyperbola, we don't do the inverse because it's the same function, especially when it's the standard one. But when it comes to the exponential one, we do have the inverse. And it's a special case because it's a new graph that you've studied a bit more in depth in grade 12. And what do we call that one? So if you have y equals, let's just keep it as a times b to the power of x. Let's just keep it simple. How do we get the inverse? We swap x and y. And then we try to make y the subject. So x divided by a, b to the power of y. How do I get y alone? We need to make use of log. The base remains the base, and then we have x over a. So this is now a new function, and it's the whole thing about logs. But if you understand the exponential graph in depth, or you understand that good, then the log graphs will be very easy. So if your original exponential graph looked like this, then the inverse will look like this, because it reflects around the y equals x axis. And if the original one looked like this, then the other one will look like this. Or if the original one looked like this, then the other one will look like this. Or if the original one looked like this, the other one will look like this. Yeah, you understand that? Makes sense. All right. So that's about that when it comes to everything in terms of, and there's a few more things that we can say, but we'll leave that for the questions. Any questions from your side before you're gonna do a few questions? Then you can set. Is there a question there? Nothing. All right. Are you ready for break? Are you looking forward to the breaks? And so as soon as you step in, you wonder when we're gonna end. I assume maths is not all of your favorite subject. Maybe one or two of you, or three. All right. So let's have a look at some questions. So this is maybe you've already done it, but let's do this. This was last year's paper, so I think if we can go through this, it will be good. And again, this is not we've covered everything that I believe you need to know in terms of graphs. Now just gonna practice it. So let's have a look at this one here. They say here, and we start off with a log graph. So remember, just to mention something, if f of x is an exponential graph, then the inverse thereof is a log graph. But it's not to say that every time when you see a log graph, that log graph should be the inverse. You understand what I mean? You get that. So in this instance, they give us the graph as a log graph. So we know the inverse of this graph will just be an exponential graph. Exactly. All right, so they give this to us. log base third x, and they say point A is the x-intercept, and then there's another point 3 and t, which we don't know. Now, first of all, calculate the value of t. It's only one mark. Pi radius squared. Or not? Yes. We have that x, which is 3. So f of 3 is log a third 3. And if you type that in your calculator, -1. Does it make sense according to the graph? Yes. So t is -1. You're all good with that. Just something maybe in the back of your head. We could have written it like this. And what is log of the base and the number is the same thing? It's just 1. Why can I write it like this? Because every time, if you have this, log a ninth of x, it's the same as -log 9 of x. Yeah, you know that rule. So that fraction becomes just negative. It's almost like saying x to the power of -2 is the same as 1 over x to the power of 2. So here's a fraction, but I can convert it into a negative. All right, the next question, what is the coordinates then for 1 mark? What is the coordinates of A? What will you write if you only have 5 seconds left and the teacher is standing there next to you, and they say that you need to end in 0 and 1, yeah? Either 0, 1 or 1, 0, those are most of the time the answer. So, but how do we get that? How do we get A? We equate, we don't know what the x is, but at least we know what the y is. So let's go and equate y. We know it's log a third x, but we know it's equal to 0. How do I convert a log equation into exponential graph or exponential expression? It will be x equals a third to the power of 0, which is 1. So you all agree that is then 1, 0. All right, perfect. Next, for 2 marks, what is the equation of the inverse? So go get the equation of the inverse, and it's only 2 marks. Y equals a third to the power of x. So that will be the answer. Y equals a third to the power of x. Now again, don't take this as it's always the case. But again, if you just have 5 seconds left, it's a third to the power of x. You see, a third to the power of x. But like I said, that's just if it's as easy as this. If there's no number in front here and nothing here, if it's just as this, then you can just quickly write that down. All right, now a bit more. Okay, I see this is just 3 and 2. What is the asymptote? The asymptote of the inverse. So first ask yourself, what is the asymptote of the original one? Always, if you get questions, in terms of the inverse, and there's some sort of translation, what happens to the new range or something like that, just go back to the original one, and then you ask yourself, all right, but what happened then with the next to get to the next one? So in this case, what is the horizontal or the vertical asymptote of this one as it is? 0. So what will be the vertical asymptote of the horizontal asymptote, because x and y change? So what will be the horizontal asymptote? Just y equals 0. Perfect. So you see, you will already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 marks for end of the end year exam. This was last year's paper. So now we just worry about the other 145. But at least we have 5. Okay. Now they say, draw the graph of the inverse on the set of axes provided. Okay, so we're just going to draw it here. Clearly indicate the intercepts with the axes, the coordinate of one other point and the asymptote. Okay, so you don't have it in front of you. How will we draw this? It will just be this line. And then let's make it red. This A value, where will that one be? The image of A. Yes. 0 and 1, right? And then we won't ever get to the horizontal asymptote, which is this one here, the x-axis. So this one will then look something like this. You agree? And it needs to cut. Obviously, it needs to go through all of those points, but it also needs to go through, just make sure when you're going to draw it, it needs to go through, those two needs to intercede on that y equals x axis. Because obviously the points needs to be the same there. And there we have that. Okay. And any other point? They said we need another point. Without doing a lot of calculations, what other point can I definitely add? -1 and 3. How did you guys get that? You just swap that other point. Perfect. Now you are ready for the exams. Or you don't think so? I think, like I said earlier, you can skip school now and then just go straight to the India exam. What do you think the teachers will do? If when this third term starts, you just go to class at first day and say, okay, I'm out. You're gonna be back when you start there. I think October, 10 October, or no, as but somewhere in 20 October or 17 October, something like that. You start, if I'm not mistaken, or is it November? You already have the whole exam timetable. Okay, right, and then the last question here: the graph of h is obtained when the inverse is translated 5 units to the right. Determine the y values of h where x equals greater than 4. So remember, the original one was log a third x. The inverse was then a third to the power of x. Now they say there's a new graph which is obtained when the inverse, which we'll have, third to the power of x, is translated 5 units to the right. So if it moved 5 units to the right, what happened? We've changed our x. So it means it is a third. X to the right means I'm subtracting actually 5. Determine the y values of h where x is greater than 4. So we can do it algebraically if we want to, or we can go and have a look at the graph itself. Here's the inverse. It's translated 5 units to the right. So if it moves 5 units to the right, it looks something like this. You all agree, which is that one there. Now, they ask us to determine the y values of h where x is greater than 4. So somewhere here, let's say here, there's x, which is 4. But if I moved 5 back, where was that x? At -1. So what will all the y values be? What will all these y values be? It will actually be all of those y values. Do you agree? I'll explain it again. So the answer is then everything smaller than 3. So the y values will be smaller than 3, but definitely greater than 0, because remember it's a horizontal asymptote. So let me just explain it again. Here's that inverse. Let me zoom in. Here's that inverse. Here's a number that we do know, -1, 3. They say this inverse needs to shift 5 to the right. So if I shift it 5 to the right, it looks something like this. But they ask me, when x equals 4, now I know this is not according to scale, but when x equals 4, what are these values? So now I say, let's get back to where we were. If I subtract 5, it is there at -1. So it's the same as these values here. So all of these values here will be the same as these values here. Like I said, it's not according to scale now. Let me see if I can draw it quickly for you. But I hope it makes sense. All right. But let me, in any case, draw it. Are you tired? Are you guys tired? What do you want to do? Just have fun. So let me just show you here. Y equals log the base was a third and x, so that was that one. And then y equals a third to the power of x. Ne? That was that one. And then we had a point. We had a point -1 and 3, so that point there. Now that y is being shifted. So I'm going to say a third to the power of x, but that x I'm going to say -5. And then we have a new point, the point 4 and 3. So they basically ask all of these y values of the blue one. But these y values of the blue one is the same as the y values of the red one from there on. So all of these values here, which is everything smaller than 3 but greater than 0, will obviously be all of those values there. Makes sense? Right. Let's carry on. Where's the C? All right. Here we have another function. What type of functions do we have here? Yes, hyperbola and a parabola. Which one is which one? Luckily, they do indicate it, but they don't have to. But they are nice to you. Doesn't seem so, but they are nice to you. And then this one is hyperbola. All right. What do we know of the F graph as it is given there on top? Nothing. It's just the standard equation. But what do we know about the blue one? Yes, we have the A, we have the P, and we have the Q. So we actually have everything that we need. Then they say P is the turning point of F, and it's also the intersection of the asymptotes. So there already we know quite a lot of things. The graph intersects at D, and then they give us D, and then they say M and T is the or the x-intercepts of F and G respectively. Now, go and calculate what is the domain of G. Just one more. You can see, right? The domain of G is? Yes, X can be anything. except x can't be 3. Perfect. There you have one more. So it's now only 144 that's left. We're going to slowly but surely we'll get to 150. Write down the range of f. Yes, we did discuss that earlier as well. Except 8. Perfect. Y can be anything, but not 8. Perfect. Why not? Say again. How did I know that? What? Of f, not g. So that means it must be anything smaller or equal than 8. You agree? Perfect. Not the blue one, rather the green one. You can say, well, it's anything else, but it's not necessary. All right, then these type of questions, they like to ask these type of questions. And usually, remember, you have 1.2 minutes per mark or per point. So these are supposed to take you 5 minutes. But you can do this in maybe less than 30 seconds. So you can save a lot of time when it comes to the graphs. I know it doesn't seem so, but you can really save a lot of time when it comes to the graphs, especially these last few questions and these type of questions. Because they don't want you to do a lot of calculations. They want you to just have a look at the graph, know how to interpret graphs, and then you will get your answers. So where is they ask us here, where is the blue one smaller or equal than the green one? So in other words, where's the blue one lower than the green one? For 2 marks. Yes. Remember, this is where x is 3, and this is where y is 8. From 3 to what is not included? 3 is not included. So you can say from 3 and 5 is 5 included. Yes, so you can write it like that, or you can maybe write it as y is smaller or equal than 5, but just greater than 3. It's only this section here, where the blue one, just keep in mind, right? Let's say, I know this graph doesn't look like that, but let's say this part here look like this. It just cut there, or just intersect there. Let's say here 2. Then, if the same answer, the same question would have been what we've written here, and also where x equals to. Sorry, x, I mean, not y, x. So just keep that in mind, especially if there's an extra equal mark. Have a look at where does the graphs also touch each other, or where do they intercede with one another. And I mentioned that that's more applicable to your tree graphs, because with tree graphs, let's say you have something like this, and then another graph that goes like this, then maybe they cut there. You get the idea. All right, where is the green one smaller than 6? And look at the amount of marks. 5 till. So x is greater than 5. Yes, but you will only get 1 mark. And you can say, or, yes, x is less than 1. Let's have a look. It's the same value there, right? So we need that value there. What is the distance from 3 to there. It's 2, right? So subtract 2, it needs to be at 1, which means it is less than 1 as well. So there we will get the 2 answers, or the 2 marks. Perfect. Now, show that the equation of the parabola is negative a half x squared plus 3x plus 7 over 2. So I'm going to put this here. It's 3 marks. The next one is nice. It's 6 marks. But see if you can get that. Now that you have everything that you need, see if you can show that that is the case. It's just this 2 hours that's quite long before the break that we're going to have. Then afterwards, we're going to have, I think, 3 hours of class, if I'm not mistaken. But we will have obviously more breaks then. And then tomorrow, I think it's 5 hours straight. But again, we will have breaks. So don't worry. This was the longest. If you alive up until now, then everything is good. Then you can make it. But think of it. What is the amount of time you spend straight just doing maths at home when you study for maths? What was the longest? 2 hours. Without looking at your phone, without going to the bathroom, just maybe a sip of water or so. So what I want to get to is a lot of times students say they did study a lot, but their marks is not good. But they've studied short sections the whole time. So it's as if I'm telling you, I want to run the Comrades, and the Comrades is just a lot of 100 meters, right? So I'm just going to run 100 meters. So I'm studying, I'm exercising for the next 5 months. Every day I'm running 100 meters. And I say, but why can't I run the marathon, the Comrades? Because I didn't do longer extensions of exercises. So the same with your brain. You, some of you maybe, or some of the learners, they study, they do a question, look at their phone, do a question, look at the YouTube video, do a question, and then they think, but I did study. And now you get in the exam, and you need to you sit down for 3 hours, and your brain needs to work for 3 hours straight. And then there's some shortcuts in the brain, and you can't you have a blackout and you can't remember what you've studied and stuff like that. So you need to study. I know it's difficult, but you need to at least study or force yourself to study for 2 hours straight, just maths. If you obviously, the more the better. If you can sit down and do maths straight for 4 hours, it will be good. Then comes 3 hours, then you're like, oh, this is nothing. I can do this. All right. Did you get that value? So what do we have? It's in what form is this? Like, ask yourself, like we did earlier, is it in the, where is that now? Is it in the turning point form or the x-intercept form? Or what do we have? We have the turning point. So if we have the turning point, we can just use the turning points equation. So I know y equals a, x minus p squared plus q. A I don't have, but p I do have. It's 3. And q I have, it's 8. What other point can I substitute in now? Yes. Again, obviously, I can't use p again because I've just used p. If you were to try and substitute in p, you will just get 0 equals 0 or 2 equals 2 or something like that. So I substitute in d as 5 and 6. So 6 equals a, 5 minus 3 squared plus 8. So we have here 4a and so what is a? Does it make sense why it's negative? Because it's sad. Now that we have a as negative half, what can we do now? We can just substitute it in here, right? So we have negative half x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus 8. So negative half x squared plus 3x minus 9 over 2 plus 8. And that gives us exactly what they want, which is plus 7 over 2, which is 3.5. So there we have it. Everybody good with that? Right, now for 6 marks, it's a short question but long calculations. What is the length of MT? So let me put this here. So we have everything that we need. Otherwise, they made a mistake. What is the length of MT? How are we going to get M? Just the x-intercept. And T, also the x-intercept. So go and calculate what are those x-intercepts. Again? You have the equation now. There's the equation. And you have both equations. So just make y 0. Yes. Yeah, you know where it is. So there's a few, but the closer one or closest one is just this building here on the end, but on that side. Yeah, you just walk straight and you will see the women's bathroom, and then on the other side is the men's bathroom. Did you guys receive paper or did you bring along your own paper? They didn't give you some papers. Okay, did you manage to find the answers? What is the answers? 12, 4, 4.5. So we have 4, we have 4.5. You say 5 or 3. All right, let's see. So we equate this to 0. Multiply with -2 throughout. Then we have x squared minus 6x minus 7, that's 0. So this can luckily be factorized. So it's x plus minus 7 and 1. So x is -1 or x equals 7. So that makes sense. And then to get t, we need to equate this to 0. So if we equate that to 0, we have -4 over x minus 3. That's equal to -8 over 1, basically. We can cross multiply, or we can just say x minus 3 is then -4 over -8, which is just a half. So x then is 3 plus a half, which is 3.5. You all got 3.5. So that is then 3.5. So what is then the distance from there to there? Yes. So it's 4.5. So 4.5 units. All right. You guys good? Any questions? Nothing. You're just looking forward to the next 30 minutes or when it's done. Then everything will be good. All right. So determine the equation of the tangent to f at D. So here's a D there. We need to get the tangent. Let's make it red. So now uh, this we already touch on derivatives and stuff, which we will do after the break in more depth. But yeah, they ask it, and they can because it's part of paper 1. So the equation of the tangent line at D, and it's 3 marks. So how are we going to get that? Remember, a straight line, we need 2 points, or if we don't have 2 points, we need 1 point, which we have, 5, 6, and the gradient. So we just need to find the gradient. How are we going to get the gradient? Yes. So get the first derivative, um, substitute in 5 because we know at 5, that is what we want. And then we have the gradient. Yes? Yes. Moet jy dit kry? O, nou, okay. Dis reg, jy kan dit uitdeel. Ons gaan ons 12 ure breek hê, as ek nie mis nie. So hoe laat moet hulle daar wees of hoe laat? O, ek het die program hier so hier staan official opening 12 o'clock. Dis dan by N2A geen of 2. Maar ons kan ja, of okay, ag ja, julle kan maar seker my uitdeel. All right. What do you guys get? What is the first derivative? It is negative x plus 3. But I need to substitute in 5. Do you all have negative 2? So the equation of this line then is y minus 6, negative 2, x minus 5. So we have y equals negative 2x plus 16. Does it make sense? I know this is not according to scale, but does it make sense that that should be 16, that y intercept? Oh, daar kort nog enetjie. Wat was julle name? Sorry. Daar's kort net nog een vir hierdie persoon hier. So, hy het gebadkamer toe. Hy's 25, dink ek. Okay. O, was hy? Nee. Hier jy sien. Okay. Robert, aangenaam Robert. Gustav. Ja, dis reg. Begin. Okay. Reg. So you all have that then as y equals negative 2x plus 16. All right, perfect. Let's have a look at the last one here, and then we are done. Then the differentiation awaits us. That's a nicer work, or not? You like that a bit more with the 3D, with the up and down and up again graph. All right, so we will do that then after the break. Right, so this graphs is given. We have a straight line and a hyperbola again, and let's just color code it again. The one I'm going to make is green again. It's just a straight line. And the other one I'm going to make blue. It is the hyperbola. Oops. All right. And then they say we have a vertical asymptote where the other one cuts the x-axis. What is the gradient of the green one? 1. Perfect. Now, for 1 mark, write down the coordinates of the x-intercepts of G in terms of P. It is negative P. Because there, if it was negative P, then this value would have just been P, right? But now that value should be negative P, so that what's standing there is eventually positive. So it's negative P. So where is that now? The x-intercept in terms of P is just negative P. Or you can say it's P is just the answer, then what it will be negative. But we'll see now what the answer is in the end. But I think it's better to write it mathematically correct like that. So now they say here, graph for 5 marks. Graph G intersects the horizontal asymptote of graph F at x equals 1 and the graph F at x equals 3. Graph F and G also intersect on the y-axis. Determine the equation of F. So here's x equals 1. And the graph f at x equals 3. So that's what they mean there. Graph f and g also intersect on the y-axis. Determine the equation of f for 5 marks. So what do you guys think we can do? Skip it. Yes, I still okay. 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 Yes. 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 That's correct, yeah. Yes. The vertical asymptote. Yes. Yes, that's you think in the right direction, 100%. But how are we going to get the green lines equation? We only know where they intercede. We only know. So what is this? We don't know what this is, but we know at least it is y equals q. So that point there, we can say is 1 and q, at least, right? And that point here, we can say it's negative p and 0. That we can say. What do we know about the gradient of the green line? It's 1. So this gradient is delta y, so it's 0 minus q divided with negative p minus 1. But that answer must be 1. So negative q equals negative p minus 1. So we can say q minus p equals 1. So we have one equation, 2 variables. We need something else. But at least that's a start. What do we know about this value here? That value is just 0 and c, according to my graph. You see. What can we do? We can get another equation. That's where those two are equal to one another. This one here is 3 and something. 3 and we are not 100% sure whether it will be 1. We know at least it's 3. We know the gradient is 1. So what can we do furthermore? There's a lot of different ways that we can look at it. We have one equation, one variable, 2 variables, so we need another equation. Yes, I can get that gradient as well and equate that to, then I will have something in terms of C. So C, P, and Q will then be involved. That Monday, I know it's at 3 in some way. So what can we do? Does somebody see something that we can do? What do we know is that Q, that they say the distance is 1. They said here graph G intersects the horizontal asymptote of graph F at x equals 1. So G is the green one, and it intersects there at 1. And then it says here, and the graph F, which is the blue one, at x equals 3. So that's just that. Graph F and G also intersect on the y-axis. So exactly there. Determine the equation of the... So what else can we do? We know g of x is just, let's just write that down, that it's visible, x plus c. What will, so if I just substitute in that value, I will have 1 if I substitute in the q value, q, this point here. If I substitute in there, I get q equals 1 plus c. So they have another equation, but other variables. The q, the c. So at this moment, let's just do it in yellow. There's an equation and there's another equation. But unfortunately, it's just 2 equations, 3 variables. So I need another one. I can substitute in this point. Let's make it pink. This point here. If I substitute in that point, in the blue's equation, then I have C equals A over P plus Q. What is C? C is the same as Q minus 1. So Q minus 1 is A over P plus Q. The Q's can cancel, and I basically have, you can say negative P equals A. And what else can we do? What is another point that we have? This value here is the same as x plus c, because remember it's on that line. X plus c. So x is 3, so it's 3 plus c. So I can substitute that also in there. Let me use another color, orange. I can substitute that in here. So then I have 3 plus c equals a over 3 plus p plus q. But c again is just q minus 1. So I'm just getting all of the equations together. That's with all the different variables. So the q's can cancel, and we have 2 equals a over 3 plus p. So if I multiply out, we have a equals 6 plus 2p. And now finally, that equation and that equation I can take together. Then I have 6 plus 2p, which is equal to negative p. So that means negative 3p equals 6. So p equals -2. And now that I have that, I can substitute it in here. So 1 equals Q plus 2. So Q equals -1. Was quite extensive exercise. But it's just finding equations. You see, I have one equation, two variables. Find another equation. Oh, now I have two equations, but unfortunately not two variables, three variables. All right, get another equation, then you get the idea. Just finding all the equations. And now it makes sense because this then is -1 and this then is at 2. So the equation of f, that was what they asked, right? The equation of f, oh, and I need a as well. A is then just 2. So we have then f, which is 2 over x minus 2 minus 1. Say again. Plus 2. Where? All good. Do you all agree with me on that one? Because the Q worked out as -1. The A worked out as 2. And the P worked out as -2. All right, then the last question here is describe the transformation that G undergoes to become an axis of symmetry of F that cuts F at 2 points. So all that they mean is there's another axis of symmetry that doesn't cut the graph. So they could have said the one with a positive gradient, or they could have said the one with that's increasing. You see, it's just different ways of referring to the same line. Now they were a bit more creative and they say the one that cuts it at 2 points. So it's just to say it's not that one. It's not the one that has a -1 gradient. All right, so only 2 marks. How far we know this thing needs to go then must cut there. So it needs to move. How many units does it need to move? What was Q again? Q was -1. So that is at 1, -1, and it needs to move 1 unit. So what type of transformation? And there's a few ways that you can say it, but in the end, we can just say 1 to the right, and that's that. Or you could have said this whole thing could have gone 1 down as well. You see, 1 to the right or 1 down will be the same because the gradient is 1. So it doesn't matter if you go 1 to the right or 1 down. Or you could have said 1 unit down. And then you have it. Everybody good? Any questions? Now we can take a break. Take a Kit Kat. Is there a Kit Kat there inside? Not. It should have been a Kit Kat. All right. So I think the schedule says you need to go to N2A now, GO2. So this whole building here is N2B. So N2A is then just that one. And GO2 is at the back, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. This one. X equals to? X, where was X equals to P? Say, what are you asking? X equals to P. No, X in this question here, or this part here. No, X is just, remember it's a function, so you keep that X there. X, you can't substitute in X as a value. When you're going to write the equation, X needs to be involved. X equals X plus P. If you equate it to 0, is this vertical line here. Oops. Where am I now? Is this vertical line here? Right? So that's why we set that vertical line there. The equation of that line is then x equals negative p. So that line there's equation is negative p. Because we can't divide with a 0. So x plus p, if that is equal to 0, then x is negative p. That's why this line is where x equals negative p. That line. Makes sense. And then from there on, we did what we've done. Or is there another question that you have? You're fine. All right. So after the break, so according to the schedule, we see each other 1:45 again, right? So 1:45, then we will carry on, and then we will have a look at the differentiation part and that third degree polynomial and all of that stuff. How do we factorize a third degree polynomial and all of that? All right, enjoy the break.